talk number 11 on Nat Talks About It. So we're shifting topics a little bit today. I've been talking a lot about relationships and feelings and closure and all these very romantic-y type of topics. Is that a word, romantic-y? We're shifting gears this week based on a conversation that I had with my cousin. So this week's talk is, are we even friends if? And it's about navigating friendships, right? And it's about navigating norms, patterns, and expectations in friendships. So actually, before I start, I wanted to answer, someone DM'd me based on the last topic, love is a verb. Somebody had DM'd me a question. And the question was, how are you acting on love? Since you say that love is a verb. So I guess I think I answered that in the talk, but I appreciated the question. So I'm not romantically involved to act on that kind of love right now. But I do think that I do act on the other kinds of loves that I have. And I like to think that I'm a very intentional person. So in the ways that I do that is checking in on people. I make myself available to be of service to the people that I love. And I think that, if I were to become romantically involved, again, I think that is something that I could keep up with. I think I do a really good job of acting on love. I haven't always, but I think that I've learned a lot from the past 2 decades of my life, and I think that I could truly, this version of me could truly act the best towards love. If you compare me, my versions, this version to all my previous versions, I think this one would be the best. So I'm hopeful for that. So thank you for your question. So navigating friendships. It's an interesting topic, I think, and it's an important one because I think that when we think about making friends, we always think about younger people. Like a lot of times you make your friends for a lifetime, but really and truly you can make friends in a lot of different venues, in a lot of different parts of life, right? You make friends at work, you make friends if you participate in activities outside your home or outside of work, you make friends when you go to school, you make friends in a lot of different ways. And you make friends through other people as well. You meet people through someone else and then you become friends. So I think that the first question that comes to mind when we talk about navigating friendships is, should friendships have expectations? Right? Should friendships have expectations? And I think that all relationships should have expectations. The parent-child relationship has the most strict of all expectations, right? You have to feed your children. You have to take them to school. You have to take them to the doctor. Those are all expectations that not everybody meets, right? But they are expectations. So I think all relationships, romantic ones, friendships, they all have expectations. And I think that why relationships should have expectations and do is because if you're investing in something, you want to return, right? And a relationship is an investment, right? You won't be able to feel the satisfaction in a friendship if it doesn't come back in time together, feelings, and all the things that you invest, you want back, right? So I think that reciprocity is really important. But what I do think is that the expectation of the friendship depends on the kind of friendship it is. And we all know about that, right? So there are acquaintances, there are casual friendships, and then there are more intimate friendships, right? The ones that we call, these are my best friends, these are my close friends. When we talk about acquaintances, we talk about people that we may not see often, but we like them, we see them from time to time, and we enjoy them. So every expectation, every friendship has a different expectation. And I think that how those expectations develop should be on both people. But I also think that they develop organically and naturally. I'm not necessarily sure that if we looked at our friendships, we sat down and we said, this is what I expect from you, and this is what you should expect from me. I don't think we do that with friendships. We often don't do that in romantic relationships, and we should. So I think what happens is that a lot of times how you do friendship isn't how I do friendship, right? So we talk about, how do you shape these expectations? How do these expectations shape in you and me if we're going to be friends? And that's difficult, right? Because I think it's based on what you've experienced. I think it's based on what you want to have. I also think that it's something that is co-created in a good way, right? So you get people used to what you get people used to, right? That's how you co-create a little bit. Even if you don't have the conversation, well, this is what I expect and this is what you should expect from me. Once people start seeing your style, they either continue with it or they decide that you're not for them, right? So it's an unspoken expectation. So there are people, so I think this happens a lot with like communication, right? You have friends that are more texters, and you have friends that are more callers. They're more talking on the phone. And then you have friends that like to go out more than stay in, right? You have friends that like to shop more as their activity, more so than going out to eat, right? So as the friendship develops, you start to figure out, and I think that's how you start to figure out who are your people and who are not. Because there are things that I'm not into. Like I can tell you right now that you're not gonna get me to anybody's club. So if I meet you at work or I meet you wherever and we develop a friendship that can get very intimate, and you're a clubber or you want to go out dancing every weekend, that's probably not going to work for me because I'm not going to do that. I can tell you that I'm not going to do that. So that happens pretty early and pretty organically, right? Because as you ask me, hey, let's go to the club, I'm going to say, no. And that's probably going to wedge distance between us. I also think that our attachment styles deal a lot with expectations in friendships. Same thing with relationships. And what I mean by that is that when you have, for example, an anxious attachment style, which are those of us that are a little more needy, right? Those are those of us that we need more reassurance. We need to know that you're still there even if you're not there. So if you're an anxious attachment style, it is likely going to be that your expectation in a friendship is a little needier. You need your friends a little more than other people. You want your friends to attend all your things. You want your friends to call or text every day, whatever your preference is. These are things that you might expect. And that creates friction because someone else's attachment style might be more avoidant, right? They might need to retreat to themselves. They might need more isolation, or they might need more of a diversity of company, not just you. So these are the people that say things like, that's not your best friend, that's my best friend. So, you know, people, like when you introduce your friend from one group to a friend from another group, and they're like, who's that? Right? That's more of a needy personality. And the expectations of that person might not align with the other person. And that can get problematic, particularly in adult friendships. Because when you are younger, it's a little harder to tell that that's what's going on. And you don't even know that it's bad. You see it as, oh, my friend just wants to spend time with me. My friend just wants to be with me. But when you really look at it, it's really that I need you to satisfy what my attachment style asks for. Also, past relationships, right? Past relationships shape our expectations. I know for myself, what I expect a lot of times come from what felt good for me in the past. If I liked it and it felt good, then I'm likely going to want that to happen again in other friendships. Life changes also impact expectations, right? When you could have a very close and intimate friend, but you move or you marry or you have children, career changes, or all these things can impact the expectation that you have on the friendship. Maybe the expectation was that you guys saw each other very often, a few times a week. You move 25, 40 miles away and you both have full-time jobs, that's probably going to come down a lot. So I think that that's also very impactful. I also think social media, I'm finding that social media is coming up a lot in a lot of my conversations about relationships, because what happens, right? Social media is very good to help you connect with people that are not as close, right? And it's also very quick. So what do a lot of us do? We share reels, we share videos. That's a kind of connection. And I think that for some people, we may feel like if I'm connecting on social media, then I'm connecting, right? We're still friends. We're still close. Sometimes that's all I need. I have a friend, and my friend is strictly text. So connecting with this friend, like if I need to talk about something, it's probably going to be awkward. It's probably not going to happen in a way that satisfies me. It's probably going to leave me very dissatisfied, very wanting. But it's not going to hit. It's probably not going to happen. She just doesn't do calls. And sometimes we can't just drive over to each other and talk about things, but sometimes we need to talk. It needs to come out. So that happens a lot. People like that, they're fine connecting on social media, right? They can send DMs and private messages back and forth for several hours, and hey, we connected. That's fine. And I mean, I think any connection is better than no connection. So I think there's definitely value in that. But I just don't know, when you have needier friends, if that really satisfies a needy friend. So then the question becomes, right? How do you navigate mismatched expectations, right? If I'm a needy personality style, attachment style, and you are more secure or avoidant, right? Because just because you're not anxious doesn't mean that you're secure. You could be an avoidant personality or secure. How do we navigate that? Can those two people be friends? And how do we navigate it so that we remain friends without conflict, without friction, right? Because ain't nobody trying to bring no relationship in their life that's going to take their peace and is not going to add to them. Nobody's trying to do that, right? Especially at the ripe age, right? When you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, this is not okay. So I want to think that you kind of have to hold space for the differences that you have. And that's probably going to come with a little bit of compromise. right? So I feel like, for example, if you have a friend who needs consistent communication, and that's important to you, your friend is important to you, you might have to do daily check-ins, right? However they are. Hey, just checking on you, right? Um, and occasional catch-ups, they sometimes don't work for people, right? But sometimes they do. So you kind of have to figure out the middle point for your friendship. Are you in the daily check-ins, or are you in the occasional catch-up? Because what I think that when you are involved in a friendship that makes you feel like you're not fulfilling the friendship, or you're not fulfilled in the friendship, I think the same thing that happens in romantic relationships happens with friendships. And I think what starts to happen is that you're not happy with the friendship, and that's when you start avoiding, right? So avoidant patterns happen in romantic relationships and friendships. This is where you know your friend is calling and you're like, oh, she's gonna need something. I don't want to talk to her, right? I don't want to talk to her. And that becomes 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. And before you know it, you're selecting when you're going to answer for him or her. And that doesn't feel good, especially if the other person starts to tell, like, oh, now you just never have time for me. But it's because you're so draining or so emotionally taxing on me that I have to take you in doses, right? But I think if we think about how we hold space for the differences in the people that we care about, I think it's easy to come up with a happy medium. I do. But I don't think we think about that enough. So I got into a conversation about support, right? What is the role of support in friendships? And in the conversation that I was having, it seemed like unconditional support was reserved for romantic relationships. And then the support of your friends, that was a little less. And listen, there's different kinds of supports, right? There's emotional support, there's social support, there's practical support. But make no mistake, in all relationships, support does the same thing. It builds trust and it builds security, right? If I don't feel supported by someone, it's likely that that's not going to be a secure and trusting relationship for me. That's probably going to be a relationship that's kind of flimsy. So we need to feel that I can count on you. So if I need you and I'm expressing that I need you for something, and you have to think about it, you have to think about maybe how it inconveniences you, how you feel about the request, then that might not be an unconditional friendship. And that's something to think about, right? If you have conditions on your friendships, then you should probably communicate those expectations within your friendships, because eventually your friends are going to ask something of you that's going to hit that condition, and that's not going to be good. For myself, I have it's not a rule, but I basically do the same thing all the time. If my friend requests my support in something, whatever it is, right? Whether it's to attend something, whether it's to provide something, whether it's to go with somewhere, whether it's to help with an activity or anything like that, I typically go with, am I available, right? When you need this, can I do this? And then if I can, I go to, will doing this cause me any harm? or someone that I care about, right? Is it going to harm my children? Is it going to harm my family, or is it going to harm me? And if the answer is no, I typically do it. I typically go to the event. I typically provide you with what you need, or I typically accompany you to do whatever it is. And I kind of think like that's how that support should be. I had a very close relationship with someone who believed, well, let me rephrase. Not someone who believed, because I don't know if that person would agree with this comment, but that I was about to say, but it was definitely someone who showed their support when they agreed with what was going on. So if they didn't agree with it, they were not supporting in any way. So if you needed money, depending on what the money was for, then this person would help with the money. If you needed to go, somebody to go with you somewhere, well, what's it for? What is this? What is the purpose of this thing? And then this person, if they agree, then, and I don't know, I don't think that that's true support. I don't think that's, and I'm not saying that it should be unwavering no matter what. But if every time you're called to support me, you're going to have to agree with it. So if I borrow money to buy a bag that you don't like, or that you don't think I should spend the money on the bag, you're not going to lend me the money, even though I'm going to pay you back. That's not really supportive. Or if I ask you to attend I had posted this example. If I ask you to attend the heavy metal concert where I'm playing, but because you don't like heavy metal music, you're not gonna go, then that's really not support. You shouldn't have to agree with something to support somebody that you love and care about. Because the understanding is that if it's somebody that you love and care about, there's some similarities in the value system. It's very rare that you will be friends with someone who doesn't have a lot or doesn't share a lot or most of your values. So what I'm asking you to support is probably not going to go against the grain. So why is that difficult? So I kind of feel like that's something that means that the friendship is probably not an intimate one. It's probably a friendship that has to move more to casual or an acquaintance. If I'm not willing to support you unless I agree with you, then you're probably should not be somebody that's close to me. So I think that navigating friendships and expectations in friendships is a lot about give and take. I think that reciprocity is really important in friendships and everything else. If I don't feel that we're both giving and taking, I'm likely not going to be happy in the relationship and friendship, and I'm probably going to withdraw, right? I'm probably going to withdraw emotionally or physically. And that's how distance between two people begins. You ever see two friends and they were very close, and with time, they're not at all. And you're like, what happened? And nobody really knows. And a lot of times that's what happens. There's friction based on the expectation of the friendship, and nobody talks about it. And it just goes on and on and on. So, and I think also one of the things that I was thinking about when I was thinking through this topic was, how aware and how accepting are we that not all friendships last forever, right? Some people are just seasons, and we hate to acknowledge that, right? Because we feel it means something bad, but sometimes your friends are overstaying their welcome. You know, they were there for a purpose and for a reason, and now that there's no longer a need for that. And I know what that sounds like, but I think that that's worth thinking about when we're navigating friendships. Okay, so that was it. Let me know what you think. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Nat talks about it. On Instagram, send me a DM. Tell me what you think. Let me know if you have questions for me. See you next time.